Short answer, yes. Asterisk. Howdy everyone. There's been a lot of discourse on the internet recently about the dirtbag left and how they're bringing over Nazis to the left and whether that's a good thing or not. And on the one hand, there are people who believe that, as leftists, our aims should be both to decrease the number of Nazis as much as possible, as well as to bring over as many people as possible towards the left. Therefore, turning Nazis into leftists is a good idea. And on the other hand, we have people, predominantly members of minority groups, who would very much like to not be in the presence of people who very publicly wanted them dead not very long ago. And both of these positions seem very intuitive and reasonable, but they're both seemingly contradictory, at least at first glance. So how do we resolve this dilemma and make a reasonable choice between two reasonable positions? Well, firstly, we should get more into the justifications of what both sides in this argument believe. The dirtbag/debate bro left are a group of leftists who are trying to win over Nazis, reactionary gamer bros, and otherwise disaffected men who might otherwise have tendencies towards being generally a bit of a shithead. And they generally do this by presenting leftist talking points, but also in a way that appeals to that machismo side of these men, with aggressive but endearing caricatures of people who sound smart and confident, while also being progressive role models. Or that's the aim, at least. And this is a very good demographic to target. And I do think that their content is somewhat useful for moving reactionaries further left and towards advocating for positive change in the real world, especially within gamer spaces. Furthermore, it's important to acknowledge that, since we're pro-prison reform leftists who believe in rehabilitative justice, it's possible for someone who formerly believed and has done a bunch of undeniably horrible and distasteful things in the past to also change and grow as a person into at least the bare minimum of not being a Nazi shithead. And while for a lot of people on the left that's not a hard bar to clear, some people aren't so lucky, if you can call that luck. For some people, the truly terrifying reality of how low your own brain can be twisted and broken and molded into something like that can be pretty hard to face, acknowledge, and then grow from. This is something that should be encouraged, and it rarely happens without baby steps out. The dirtbag left can provide that. Now, with all that being said, it's important to take a look at the other side as well. A lot of leftists are members of minority groups. They might be Black, Asian, Latin American, Indigenous, or any other non-white population. They might be members of the LGBTQ+ community. They might be disabled, either neurodivergent or physically. They might be another ethnic or religious minority, Romani, Jewish, Muslim, or Slavic people, for example. And people in these groups have a little bit of history with Nazis, to put it lightly. And Nazis tend to want them all dead, deliberately killed to death forever, to put it less lightly. And telling these people that they have to share equal say with people who wanted them dead a few months ago but now totally don't, they even say so, and you can definitely trust their word. It's not a good idea for many reasons. Most notably, you probably won't be able to tell if the person really has changed. And to you, especially if you're able-bodied, cis, straight, white, and/or male, that might not matter that much. So you don't pay as close attention. But that risk is heightened if you're not all of those things, since now, if they haven't really changed, they're much closer to their initial target. So people who are most at risk of hate crimes aren't going to want to be near people who they know have in the past said that they want to hate crime people exactly like them. And that brings us on to the second point. Not being a Nazi anymore takes quite a lot of time and effort. Even if you decide in your head that you no longer want to do anything remotely Nazi-like, totally publicly disavow your former Nazi friends, and then subscribe to Vaush or Xanderhal or something, that doesn't instantly make you a progressive intersectional leftist. A lot of those internal biases that made you a Nazi will still be there, many of which you might not have even thought to question. You might still be acting really weird around sex workers or disabled people. You might still use slurs on a semi-regular basis. You might still deadname a trans person you disagree with, to name just a couple of the most obvious manifestations of these biases. And if people point out these problematic behaviors to you, that doesn't make them cringy Twitter woke scolds who are purity testing you out of the left. They're just noticing that you're still acting a little sus around members of minority groups, which is one of the reasons why I don't really like dirtbag left communities taking the anti-woke scold position. It's very weird and seems counterintuitive to me, but I digress. But all that being said, I do think it is important to have people out there on the front lines, if you want to be pretentious about it, which I do. Because at least in theory, it would be useful for me to have people with more spoons than I do argue my point in my place. And ideally, disaffected members of minority groups wouldn't have to constantly defend their own existence to people who want them dead. Pulling off from all of this, I think that the people who are trying their darndest to pull over reactionary gamer bros and alt-righters to the left should either create their own leftist spaces, where they try to limit their interactions with members of minority groups, and maybe form a holding space, almost a rehabilitative space where they can grow and learn about progressive ideas. Or failing that, just do better. Like, if you want to have that audience of members of minority groups, just try to make sure that the reactionaries you bring over are actually de-radicalizing properly. Having to be allies with people who think that poor people shouldn't have to die, but that disabled, gay or trans people should, gets a little bit tiring, especially to those of us who are one or more of those things. And for the love of all that is holy, if something you're doing pisses off the overwhelming majority of trans people or disabled people or neurodivergent people, then just stop doing it. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment to let me know you like the video, and subscribe for more like it. Only a small percentage of people who watch this video are actually subscribed, so if that's you, please subscribe and turn on the notifications. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Alternatively, you can also join my Discord, follow me on Twitter, or donate to my Patreon, or do all four of those. It's completely up to you. Either way, stay safe, stay spicy, and as always, have a good